Have you ever picked up your phone, mindlessly started scrolling, and then, somewhere between the third and fourth post, felt a quiet but heavy feeling settle in your chest? Not sadness exactly, not jealousy exactly, but something in between. Like you were perfectly fine until you weren't. That feeling has a name, and chances are it's been quietly running your life for a very long time. Most of us were never taught this, but comparison is one of the most psychologically expensive habits a human being can have. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like a problem most of the time. It just quietly shows up in the way you feel after a work meeting, in how you react to a friend's good news, in that slow, sinking thought, why don't I have what they have? And what's wild is, the more you do it, the worse you feel, but the harder it becomes to stop. Today, we're going to look at what's really happening inside your mind when you compare yourself to others. And more importantly, what starts happening when you finally stop. Because the shift isn't just emotional, it's biological, it's behavioral. It changes the actual structure of how you see yourself. Let's get into it. Here's something that might surprise you. Your brain is wired to compare, literally neurologically wired for it. It's called social comparison theory, first described by psychologist Leon Festinger back in 1954. His idea was simple. Humans don't have a built-in ruler to measure how smart, successful, or capable they are. So we look to other people as the measuring stick. This made perfect sense for early humans. You need to know if you're pulling your weight in the tribe. You need to know where you stand so you can stay safe, stay relevant, stay alive. But here's the problem. We're no longer in a tribe of 50 people. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're in group chats, we're watching the highlight reel of thousands of people every single day, people we don't even know, and our ancient brain is treating all of it as real, meaningful social data. It's like your brain was built for a small village and you threw it into a stadium of 8 billion people, all of them looking their absolute best. And every time you compare, even briefly, your brain makes a quick, automatic judgment. Am I above or below this person? Psychologists call these upward comparisons and downward comparisons. Upward comparisons, looking at someone you think is doing better than you, trigger a very specific emotional response. For some people, it's motivating, but for most people, most of the time, it activates the brain's threat response, the same system that fires when you're physically in danger. Comparison doesn't feel like scrolling Instagram. To your nervous system, it feels like a warning. There's a reason the comparison habit is so hard to break. It gives you something. Not happiness, but something that feels like motivation. A temporary sense of, okay, I need to do better. I need to work harder. I need to be more. And sometimes it works. You feel that sting and you push yourself. But here's what research shows, and this is important. The improvement almost never feels like enough. Because the moment you close one gap, your brain finds a new comparison, a new benchmark, a new person who's just a little bit further ahead. It's called the hedonic treadmill of comparison. You keep running, but you never actually arrive anywhere. And the people you compare yourself to, they're doing the same thing. The colleague you envy, they're quietly envying someone above them. The influencer who seems to have it all, studies show they experience comparison anxiety just as intensely, often more, because their competition is always visible, always growing. Psychologist Sonia Lubomirski's research found that highly comparative people are consistently less happy, not because their lives are worse, but because their mental energy is constantly being diverted away from their own experience. Think about that. Their lives aren't worse. Their minds are just somewhere else. Every moment you spend looking at someone else's life is a moment you're not actually living yours. Here's the part nobody talks about. Comparison doesn't just make you feel bad. Over time, and this is subtle, so pay attention, it starts to replace your identity. When you spend years measuring yourself by other people's standards, you slowly stop knowing what you actually want, what you actually value, what would actually make you feel fulfilled, because you've outsourced that question to everyone else. Do you want that career because it genuinely excites you, or because it looks impressive compared to where your college friends ended up? Do you want that body because it would make you healthier and happier, or because it matches the standard you've been absorbing from thousands of images? Do you want that relationship, that house, that life? Or do you want the feeling of finally being ahead in a race you never agreed to run? Psychologists call this external referencing. When your sense of self-worth becomes so tied to external comparison that you lose contact with your own internal compass. And the cruel irony? The more you compare, the more insecure you become. And the more insecure you become, the more you compare. Because you're desperately searching for proof that you're okay. It becomes a loop, a quiet, exhausting loop that most people live inside their entire lives without ever naming it. Psychologist Dr. Kristen Neff, one of the leading researchers in self-compassion, found something striking in her studies. People who rely heavily on social comparison for self-esteem are significantly more prone to anxiety, depression, narcissism, and paradoxically, lower motivation over the long term. Not higher motivation, lower. Because chronic comparison doesn't drive you toward your own potential. It drives you towards someone else's, which your mind knows, on some level, is not yours to achieve. There's also what researchers call the spotlight effect, where you become so fixated on how you measure up that you start to believe everyone else is watching and judging your performance constantly. They're not. They're busy comparing themselves to someone else. And then there's this. The people who compare most intensely often struggle most with genuine connection, because true intimacy requires showing who you actually are, not the version of you that's trying to measure up. When you're always comparing, you're always performing, and you can't truly connect with someone while you're performing for them. So comparison doesn't just cost you your peace of mind, it costs you real relationships, real ambition, real identity. Now here's what I really want you to hear, because everything we've talked about so far might feel heavy, like comparison is this monster you have to fight. But stopping comparison isn't a battle. It's more like waking up. When people start deliberately pulling back from constant social comparison through therapy, mindfulness practice, social media detoxes, or even just awareness, something genuinely surprising tends to happen. First, there's an uncomfortable quiet. When you stop measuring yourself against everyone else, there's a moment, sometimes a few days, sometimes a few weeks, where you genuinely don't know how you're doing, because you've lost your measuring stick. And that's disorienting. But it's also the beginning of something real. Because what fills that quiet is your actual self, your own preferences, your own rhythm, your own sense of what a good day feels like, divorced from what it looks like to anyone watching. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that when people shift from social comparison to what's called temporal self-comparison, comparing themselves to who they were yesterday, last year, 5 years ago, their motivation increases, their anxiety decreases, and their sense of personal progress becomes dramatically more satisfying. You become, for maybe the first time, a fair witness to yourself, not through someone else's eyes, through your own. And here's the part that gets me every time I think about it. The people who are most genuinely impressive, not socially impressive, genuinely impressive, are almost always people who stop caring about the comparison early on. They're not chasing a rank, they're chasing a vision, their vision. And that difference in direction changes everything. So how do you actually begin to step off this treadmill? Not with willpower, not with a motivational speech, with something more practical. Step 1, name the trigger. The next time you feel that quiet drop in your chest, after a post, a conversation, a meeting, just name it. I'm comparing right now. That's it. You don't have to fix it immediately. Just see it. Awareness short circuits the automatic loop. You can't unlearn a habit you haven't identified yet. Step 2, redirect to your own timeline. Ask yourself, am I better than I was a year ago? Even in a small way? If yes, you're moving. If no, that's actually useful information about where to direct your energy. Your only real competition is last year's version of you. And that's the only race where you actually know what winning means to you. Step 3, curate ruthlessly. You don't have to consume every piece of social content that exists. You are allowed to unfollow. You're allowed to mute. You're allowed to protect your attention like the finite, irreplaceable resource it is. Your mental environment shapes your mental health more than almost any other single factor. Design it with intention. Step 4, build something private. Start a project, any project that has no audience, a journal, a creative skill, a personal goal nobody knows about. When there's no one to impress, you discover what you actually enjoy. And that discovery is more valuable than most people realize. Step 5. Practice genuine joy for other people's success. This one's the hardest, but it's the most liberating. When you feel that sting of someone else's good news, instead of suppressing it, try saying something internally like, "Good for them, there's enough." Not because it's noble, because it's true. Someone else's win doesn't subtract from yours. The world isn't a fixed pie. And the moment your nervous system starts to actually believe that, something loosens. Quietly, genuinely loosens. Here's what I want to leave you with. The reason comparison hurts so much isn't because you're failing. It's because you're measuring a journey from the wrong starting point. You're not behind. You're just on a different path, one that was never meant to look like theirs. And when you stop looking sideways, something quiet happens. You start to notice things about your own life you'd been too distracted to see. The progress you'd been making, the person you'd been becoming, the small, unhurried things that were always beautiful but never photographed well. You stop asking, "Am I enough compared to them?" and start asking the only question that actually matters. Am I becoming who I was meant to be? That's a question only you can answer. And the fact that you're here, asking it, that's not nothing. That's the beginning. If something in this video hit close to home, drop a comment below. Tell me what comparison has been stealing from you. I genuinely read them. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share this with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for someone is hand them a mirror that tells the truth. Subscribe if you want more of this. New video every week. I'll see you there.